Good evening. It is 7 p.m. and I'd like to call this meeting of the Stratford Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission to order. First item of business is approval of the minutes of November 16th meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion to second. Mr. Schlager, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay.
All those in favor?
Pardon me?
All those in favor?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Under old business, we have Inland Wetlands application 2016-12.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to take 2016-12 off the table.
Second? Off the table. This is for the construction of a self-storage facility and infrastructure altering 32,843 square feet of upland review area, Ferry Creek. Proposal includes mitigation via restoration of on-site wetlands and upland review areas. Site address is 771 and 815 Barnum Avenue Cutoff. Reference map 50.10, Block 5, Lot 5, map 40.10, Block 13, Lot 8. Applicant, Buildner Capital Corporation. Good evening. Good evening.
My name is Jeff Board. I'm a professional engineer in the state of Connecticut at BL Companies, located in Meriden, Connecticut, 345 Research Parkway. Here on behalf of Buildner Capital Corp. At a property located at 771 and 815 Barnum Ave Extension. The proposal before you tonight is for a self-storage facility. To help explain the project, I have prepared an existing aerial exhibit that I'll introduce as EX1, today's date. And for the purposes of the presentation, north is to the right of the page. I do have 11 by 17s that I can pass around. It's just one copy of each, just so you guys can see it a little bit closer. So essentially what we do have here is an existing aerial that highlights the property in red. Me or someone else? The property is 3.125 acres and it's zoned light industrial MA zone, which is permitted for self-storage facility of this nature. The client was very adamant about coming in for a proposed project that was 100% compliant with zoning regulations, as well as staying outside of the 50-foot buffer to the wetlands. So that was one of the big pieces of this design that we look to achieve. What is shown on here from an existing condition standpoint is there are two existing buildings, and the back of the lot is essentially covered in construction equipment, logs, debris, gravel, and essentially it goes right up to Long Brook, located at the south of the property. Essentially, it goes right up to the wetland limits as well. So there's basically goes right up to within 5 feet of the wetlands in certain cases. On this exhibit, which I'll get into a little bit later with our site plan, I have highlighted in pink here the limits of our new curbing. So at any given point, we're pulling back the proposed curb line anywhere from 30 to 45 feet away from the existing disturbance on site today. So we're not going within that 50-foot buffer from a grading standpoint. And as I'll get into later, we are doing some mitigation measures in that area. The site plan itself is 97,316 square feet. It's 3 stories with a basement. The footprint at grade is only 23,504 square feet. Parking, as mentioned, there's 21 proposed spaces, 20 required, so we meet the parking requirements. 6 loading docks. We have 6 loading docks on the proposed site plan as well. And essentially, in the application, it is mentioned that 0.75 acres of our project is within the upland review area, within the 100-foot buffer to the wetlands. As mentioned, there is no direct impact to the wetlands themselves as part of this application. And what we've done from a grading and drainage standpoint is, one thing worth noting is in existing conditions, everything right now sheet flows off this property and into Long Brook untreated. So there's no water quality structures in place, there's no conveyance system in place. And what we propose to do is provide the treatment train necessary through a conveyance system that will get the 80% total suspended solids removal through a series of catch basins, 2-foot sumps, water quality vortechnic systems, and then into an underground detention system, which has been designed to attenuate the 100-year storm event. So essentially, the flows coming off of site now will be less than they are today, and they will be clean. From a utility standpoint, the only thing we're doing on the south side of the building is relocating a sanitary main that currently runs through where our proposed building is situated. So we are tucking that against the south side of our building. It's wholly within our parking field, and we're relocating a sanitary easement as part of that. All of the other utilities on site are coming off of Barnum Ave extension. From a landscaping standpoint, as I alluded to earlier, although we were able to keep our entire project outside of the 50-foot buffer, the client wanted to take it a step further because a lot of the existing development surpasses that 50-foot buffer and goes right up to the river. So what we propose to do is not do any grading modifications in that vicinity. However, we're going to pull out the existing gravel, we're going to pull out all the debris. We have an invasive species management plan that's in place as well that's going to maintain that for up to 2 years and promote native vegetation to be planted in place of it. And that's all within this 50-foot buffer. So the pavement removal, the removal of the large bulky waste and debris, and then the native planting will help promote wildlife and will have no adverse impacts, short-term or long-term. And we feel very confident about that. I will introduce the site plan. Essentially, this is the site, a colorized rendering of the site plan that's currently in your packages, and it's dated November 1st, 2016. And on this, we have just highlighted the green for the landscaping and then the buffer zones in the rear of the property. So as I alluded to earlier, there's several parking spaces in the front of the building on the north side. On the south side, although self-storage are pretty low intense use, they usually only require up to 9 spaces. We did provide 21 stalls just to be compliant with zoning regulations. So a lot of the spaces, even in the rear, will not get used. However, from a zoning standpoint, we needed to do it just to meet the regs. And that being said, all of our drainage, as discussed, complies with the 2004 Connecticut Water Quality Manual. And the connection point I was referring to ties into the river in this location right here, and is conveyed through the system to an underground detention system in this facility, as located on grading and drainage plan as part of your guys' set. I'd be happy to field any questions regarding the application at this time, if anybody has any.
You said you're going to relocate the sanitary sewer line?
Correct.
Can you identify where that's going to go?
The orange highlight that I just put on there is our new proposed sanitary line. If you look at the SU plan, the existing sanitary line comes straight through the building in this vicinity, and it is relatively flat. We were able to relocate it, and even with the additional length, still maintain the same pitch that was coming out. The tricky part was that it is pretty shallow, so there were several design constraints in putting the stormwater detention in that back area. Just from a clearance standpoint, we were able to make it all work, and it matches what's out there today.
It appeared in one of the drawings, maybe I was wrong, it looked like you had one of your storm drain manholes extremely close to the new sanitary line. Is that the case?
There is one that's very close, and basically that was the clearance issue I was talking about, so we got it close enough, and then it drops through that manhole to get underneath the sanitary in that location.
Do you have any concerns about that? Or it occurs to me that could be a problem in terms of a backup in either of those two.
From a sanitary standpoint?
Yeah.
I know from our building, we have a backflow preventer on our building itself. However, I know what you're referring to. The design constraint on a site in developing this in general, there's a concrete haunch that comes down right grade. So it's a rather large sanitary manhole that is extremely shallow, and in most development projects, you find sanitary is a lot deeper than storm, and a lot of times we take storm over top of sanitary, just from a design standpoint. Because this is so shallow, we had to bring storm underneath it, but the storm system's closed off, so it would be two separate systems altogether. So even if the sanitary line is backing up, there are backflow preventers in place from a building standpoint, and that would have no impact on the stormwater detention system itself. I don't know if that answered.
From historic information, and actually from some of your information, it looks like a good portion of that fill area, particularly where you have the sanitary line, the new sanitary line, was historically Westbrook muck, with some fill on top of it, earth and fill on top of it. And you're putting also your detention area in that same area. Do you foresee any problem with subsidence or any problems like that?
We do not. And we've separated it, I believe it was a minimum of a 10-foot separation between the detention system and the sanitary line itself. But we do not foresee any problems. It's designed to...
What's the water table right there at your collection area, your recharge area?
I would have to get back to you on that. I know we have 2 feet of freeboard from the bottom of our detention basin, which is rather deep, so it's probably... According to your plans, the bottom of your detention, retention, galley, whatever you call it. Yep, underground detention system, yep.
Is at 4 feet. It looks like that's pretty close, if not below, the water table.
In these designs, basically what we do is we size it for the 100-year storm, and because this site is notoriously known to have bad infiltration rates, we do not take into account infiltration. So it's sized as if there's going to be no infiltration, so it's overly sized and more conservatively sized. So there's no infiltration taken into account with this system.
But there's no infiltration, but you're planning on exfiltration, according to one of your documents.
Basically, the 100-year storm is held. The 100-year.
You're suggesting that's going to be a recharge area. Those were your words, recharge of groundwater.
We leave it open for recharge. It's designed to handle the 100-year, and we still have the 2 feet of freeboard that's required for that design.
Where is that in terms of the flood zone height for that area?
The flood zone height is at 9 feet in elevation, and we are providing compensatory storage as part of our grading to alleviate the fill that we are placing in the back there to maintain cover on some of these structures.
You do want, well, again, I'm not trying to be argumentative.
It's not a problem.
That area has flooded repeatedly well
Yep.
above that point.
Yep.
It's based on the undersized culvert going under the railroad. That's always been the block.
Yep.
You get a couple of logs across that, or you get something,
Block
a shopping cart,
There's
and that
enough of
whole
those
area
down
is
there.
flooded all the way up to Barnum Avenue. How are you going to handle that?
Well, essentially what we do is, because of the elevation from FEMA of 9 feet, we've essentially designed the site in a way that where we have increased fill and taken away storage below that elevation of 9, you're required to provide compensatory storage, which we were able to do by adding a couple of grading swales, basically outside of the 50-foot buffer line, but outside of our curb line as well. So there's 2 spots that we were able to compensate for that additional fill in that area. So it's not going to get rid of the flooding that's occurring, but it will act the same as it did before. TV.
Well, what I was going to say is that Well, regardless, we have flooding problems there right now. And in the state that the property is in with all of the debris, it's much more of a concern to me now with the flooding than it would be in your proposed condition, because obviously you're going to come in and clean up all that debris. So I think what we have to focus on is that we're going to get the net benefit of the cleanup. Some of the flooding that's going to occur on the property is going to be inherent, I think. Like Bill said, you know, if a shopping cart falls into the waterway, it could back things up all the way to Barnum Ave, but that could happen in any situation, no matter what's put there. In its current situation, that's what happens. And then we get all the floatable debris that's been in violation sitting on the property in the river also. So I think we kind of have to look at it from that respect as well, that this is going to provide a net benefit for the property, and that, you know, we're going to be preventing a lot of these floatables from reaching the water course. And I think you've designed the retention system to appropriately account for the worst-case scenario of the 100-year flood, and it seems like it's well-engineered to me, in my standpoint. Any other comments on that? Any other
Questions? Yeah, I've got a few questions. Concerning the rear of the building where you're going to repave and put parking area and access to the basement area, how much disturbance do you anticipate in the construction phase? When I went back there, and I know they removed a lot of the debris that was there, the cars and everything else, but that soil, has anybody done any soil sampling there?
I know we have done geotech and we've done environmental work, so we probably do have logs.
Because it's got to be contaminated. There's no way around it. My concern is when you do your construction and your grading back there, the disturbance of the contaminants that are there. How are you going to contain that? What kind of a plan do you have? I mean, everything sheet flows towards the back and also towards the brook. And when you raise the building, when you put your new footings in, when you put the parking area and all your pavement, there's going to be a lot of disturbance there. You know, how are you going to contain the water that's going to run off from the Barnum Avenue slope down to the back of the property?
Well, essentially, the way we design our erosion control plans, they're in accordance with the 2002 Connecticut erosion control guidelines, and what that basically is saying, we're going to have silt fence along the perimeter of the property, we're going to have silt sacks on all the catch basins. At the toe of these slopes, typically we use a double row of silt fence even, which is in accordance with the guidelines. And then stone anti-tracking pads, so from a construction standpoint, anything environmentally sensitive, they encounter that on site, it'd be a whole different story. And typically, most of the time, we do phase one up front. We have not been told any environmentally sensitive areas of this site. If they were to encounter some during construction, they'd have to handle it a whole different way. They'd have to basically.
Are you going to have a site monitor during the raising of the original building and the construction phase? Someone that's going to be accountable?
We are not under contract to do that work right now. They can very well hire us as a construction manager to be on site to oversee. Typically, the construction managers themselves provide a third party that will do that type of work. We will get shot around the RFIs and review it throughout the duration of construction.
Okay, thank you.
And just a note, usually what we put into an inland wetland permit like this, where you're going to be removing potentially contaminated debris from the site, one of the conditions from the permit would be that you have somebody knowledgeable about contaminated fill material on site to properly deal with anything that you encounter. So we can easily condition the permit that way.
A couple questions. You just mentioned you're going to be putting silt sacks in the catch basins. Is part of your storm system going to go in before any grading?
They'll do a rough grading, and then they will put the stormwater systems in. The catch basin grades themselves typically don't need the silt sacks that is required by the guidelines, just in the sense that they are raised a little bit, and then when they come in and do the paving in the parking lot,
So the southern system will go in before there's any foundation work or any demolition work in the northern section?
The demolition work would occur first. They would raise the buildings, and then that would come after. There is a sequence of construction located on our
I have another question. We've been here before on this property.
Yep, I'm aware.
Okay, then you're aware of Louis Piper. Are you aware of Dr. Piper, the veterinary clinic?
Yes.
He has had in the past some concerns. Have you talked to him and addressed those concerns?
Us as engineering firm have not. I know a lot of this, a lot of the old approvals, from my understanding, none have been involved. There were several variances associated with these. I think that was a big reason that they basically came in as a by right plan, and it was a big ask from us to try to fit this in here as a by right, not have any variances whatsoever. So that's kind of what we did. But I do not know what the conditions, so it's not certainly not one.
I'm here on behalf of Dr. Piper.
Oh, you are? When are we going to hear from you? At the end?
Whenever.
Okay. I knew Dr. Piper would come to the surface at some point.
I do. Yeah, I just have a couple questions on the invasive, the removal of the invasives. What means will be used to actually go in there and remove the invasive vegetation? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, I know a lot of times they will hand pick it.
Okay.
They don't usually have construction equipment that goes into that, they can do the same pick.
Okay.
We do have an invasive species management plan as part of our landscape notes that detail out exactly what's maintained, how it's, all the steps we go through, and essentially, the maintenance period and the replanting of the vegetation to hopefully take it over and clean it up.
Okay. That was my major concern. I just don't want to have any huge machinery in there
Yeah,
going
and a lot,
turning
and
up.
basically with that, that was basically outside of this pink line here, which was the 50-foot
Yes.
buffer. And this was the whole area that we are not technically having to do work, but we did want to do that step just to clean the site up.
Okay. And just a disclaimer, I noticed that there would be some blasting that would need to be done on the property. You just need to make sure to coordinate that with the fire marshal.
Yep, we would do that. And typically with projects like this, whenever there would be blasting to raise foundation, to put foundation in, we have to prepare a spec package as part of that. And with the specs would come in blast survey, and a whole set of steps we have to go through.
Okay. And I also had a comment that I wrote about, I read somewhere that there would be a tide valve on the outlet structure. Who would be responsible for maintaining that tide valve structure? Well, actually, who's responsible for maintenance of the stormwater system? And then can you get into a little bit of detail about this tide valve structure?
Yeah, a lot of times with these self-storage projects, they will turn it over to an end user, like a CubeSmart or a storage partner. And essentially, the way that they've written conditions in the past is that it follows the owner of the land. So it's been a condition that it has to be maintained and periodically checked. We do have an operations and maintenance manual as part of our stormwater reports.
Okay.
That requires them to be allowed on site. And a lot of times they just hold whoever is the owner of the property runs with that owner.
Question for the administrator. Do you have all those representations in your file that can be part of the permit?
Yes, I do. I think I actually gave them, I think you should have them as well. I have the stormwater management report, wetland identification and assessment report, so.
Well, particularly in terms of, it runs with the property title or in terms of management, rather than ends at a sale?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think we're good on that.
Are you done? You're good? Just for now, just for now. In terms of the rear of the property, what type of buffer do you plan on putting into along the edge of the parking lot as a transition to the brook area? Plantings, any type of, do you have anything?
Yeah, I do. On the landscape plan, we actually did go out and go lots, so I was trying to go through it briefly, but the restoration area included the removal of invasive species, basically after that curve line. And then they were supplementing it with conservation, wildlife, sea mix, and wetland buffer plantings. And as part of the landscape plan, depending on which zone it was in, the zones vary on whether or not trees and about 50 shrubs in one of the zones. Basically, they've been hatched on the landscape plan and hatched in here as well. There's one hatch right here.
Right.
And then those species are called out on the plan, and there's notes as far as spacing those. There's basically just too many to actually physically locate, so a lot of times.
Right, okay.
Town official to come out and help at the time of construction.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Who's going to be doing that work? The landscape and invasive species, is it going out to contract?
Yes. Yeah. Typically, they'll go out for bid. We would be dealing hand in hand with whoever this contract. And we have a certified landscape.
Are you putting together a spec for that contract, your firm? In terms of guarantees or warranties on the trees and vegetation, what is your spec on that?
Typically, I know for our invasives, it's 1 year, I believe. Our planting or 3-year warranty. It's in our landscape notes.
Okay.
Confirmed, but it is part of it. And
For both herbaceous as well as the woody plants?
correct. And part of
3 years.
It said, I read that in the landscape report, whatever it is.
Yeah, and our professional landscape
Or in the
architect
notes.
will be provided a spec for installation and maintenance as well.
Tina, I've got a question for you.
Sure.
Have you come up with any kind of a performance bond amount for this?
I haven't come up with the amount. I know that we definitely will need a performance bond on the project. Usually what I do is I wait for the applicant to give me a breakdown of how much it would cost to install all of these mitigation type plantings that they're doing, and also the cost for their sediment and erosion control measures. So in the event that anything failed, the town has the money
Right,
to spend going,
right.
as they say.
But
So I
we'll-
put that on the applicant to give me a breakdown of those line item costs.
Okay,
So once I have that information, then we can put the bond information
Okay,
into the
great.
agreement itself.
okay. Thank you.
I got a question. We all know it floods on that bottom corner. Are you raising that grade to contain all your water?
Yeah, so essentially, there's an area of this parking lot that is being raised. So part of the whole process with FEMA is to provide compensatory storage. What that means is you're providing the additional storage. So if we took away 5,000 cubic feet of storage above or below that elevation of the floodplain, you essentially have to make up for it by carving out more of the land. So essentially, what we are proposing from a grading standpoint, those two areas I referred to are in this vicinity just outside of the 50-foot buffer, and this vicinity just outside of the 50-foot buffer, as indicated on the GD1 sheet in the packages. So what that means is at the end of the day, the volume available on site today, there's going to be more of it after this proposed development. You have to meet or exceed the volumes that are there today. So will it make flooding a lot better? Maybe not. Will it make it worse? Certainly not. It's going to be basically required to do a one-to-one replacement. Typically, we do a little bit more.
But at the end of the day, when it's graded in the final, it's going to go back into the wetlands?
Yes.
So there's going to be like up and then back down?
Well, essentially, this is relatively flat, and that's where it's crossed with a series of conveyance spaces along this back curve line, and then this gradually grades back down to the river, whereas right now, I think it continues all the way up through the condition over here, so it will be relatively flat.
Yeah, but the bottom corner is the worst. That's where the most flooding occurs, yeah.
Down in there, we're not doing any grading, we think all the way up to this point right here.
How do you stabilize that parking lot then?
The parking lot,
Yeah, that's parking lot on the bottom, right?
right here,
Yeah.
how do you stabilize?
I mean, from the water from flooding in that area.
Oh, so the conveyance system, that's part of this curve line. We do have a conveyance system in this parking lot as well. So basically, that conveyance system goes into an underground detention facility in this vicinity that attenuates 100-year storm. So basically, all that water is getting into this underground system. It's sized for the largest storm event, and then it comes out now to the control structure at reduced peak flows from existing conditions.
Okay. I understand.
I need his name. I need him to spell his name.
Can you spell your name for the second?
Jeff, J-E-F-F, last name Ford, B-O-R-D.
B-O-R-D, okay, that's easy. Okay.
I get all of that.
Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this application?
Good evening, Madam Secretary, Baco, Mr. Chairman. My name is Barry Knott. I'm a lawyer with the firm of Knott and Dunn with offices at 1656 Main Street. I'm here this evening on behalf of Dr. Willis Piper, who does business as the farm animal hospital, which is immediately adjacent to the site. Approximately 8 weeks ago, Dr. Piper sent me a number of photos that showed the wetland area located on this site, as well as Long Brook itself, having been illegally filled in by the owner of this property by an accumulation of dumps that have occurred over the last 4 or 5 years. I sent that information to Tina thinking that she would want to bring the violation about that information. She contacted me and informed me that she was aware of the situation and that an application was going to be coming in for a storage facility, and that as part of that application, there was going to be a violation having to do with that illegal fill, and the cleanup of that violation was going to be a condition of approval of the self-storage facility wetland application. I informed her that I had opposed a previous self-storage facility on behalf of Dr. Piper about 7 or 8 years ago. We ultimately defeated it at the Board of Zoning Appeals level because it needed variances. I told her that I intended to oppose it again on behalf of Dr. Piper. I was not aware of this hearing tonight. Dr. Piper was not aware of this hearing tonight. I don't know if this is an administrative session or if it's a public hearing. If it's a public hearing, we should have gotten notice
No,
of...
it's not.
It's not a public hearing, okay. This situation, as Bill has pointed out, has been a long-standing flooding situation. This is actually Long Brook that drains Brewster's Pond, goes into this tiny aperture that goes under a railroad track out into Ferry Creek. The problem is the aperture on the track is so small that it all ends up backing up into the floodplain immediately behind this property. This is not just a flood zone. This is a flood plain. So anything that goes on down there is much more serious from a FEMA flooding perspective than if this was just a run-of-the-mill flood zone situation. There's no way that this application does not represent a potential significant impact to the wetlands as a result of what they are proposing. And I'm asking you at this time to make a finding of potential significant impact under your regulations. And that, as you know, will require a public hearing to be held, and it will also require a subsequent finding by this commission before it can approve an application that there is no feasible and prudent alternative to that which is being proposed. And I can tell you there's 150 feasible and prudent alternatives to what's being proposed here. And I can also tell you, because I've known many of you long enough sitting on this commission, that if this ain't a significant impact, nothing is a significant impact. So I'm asking you right now to make a finding of significant impact, send it to a public hearing so that notices can go out to the abutting property owners, and that we can prepare ourselves properly from an engineering perspective. Gentlemen did a great job. But we haven't had our crack at the issues yet because we haven't had notice of the thing. Tina told me an application was coming in. I expected at some point in time I'd get a telephone call from the conservation office. By the way, Barry, those pictures that you sent me are being dealt with on application 16 or 17 dash whatever, and the hearing is scheduled for such and such a day. I never got anything other than an immediate telephone call from Tina after I sent her the pictures initially, two months ago maybe.
Yeah, well, I'll stop you there for a second. We would only have a hearing if we determined that it is a significant impact activity. So that's why nobody was ever informed of a hearing, because there is no hearing yet. This is the first time we've had the applicant here to speak about the application and get our feet wet in trying to understand it and wrap our heads around it. So that's why there was no hearing called yet. If in fact we decide to have a hearing. Yeah, it's certainly not a public hearing, and it's up to the commission to decide whether it goes to public hearing or not based on significant impact. There is also the possibility that if the commission decides not to move forward with a public hearing based on significant impact, you would have to get a petition, I believe, signed by 25 people.
There's a third way, and that is if the commission determines that the application is of significant public interest. That's the
That's
third way
correct.
a public hearing can be called.
That's
However,
correct.
I'm not interested in a public hearing based on a petition signed by 25 people or based upon the fact of potential public interest. I'm interested in a public hearing based upon you making a finding that this application that shouldn't even be going forward until the violations have been removed. The cleaning up of the violation shouldn't be a condition of approval. They shouldn't even be allowed to come in until all that stuff is out there. I mean, the pictures were unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it in 42 years practicing law before this commission, as egregious as they were. But we've got a significant wetland problem back here, a flooding problem, a floodway problem, drainage problems galore. They're talking about underground retention that's going to satisfy a 100-year storm. If they did underground retention that satisfied a 1,000-year storm, it isn't going to accomplish a thing because the whole area is underwater as soon as the water backs up at the railroad tracks. And the water's not backing up at the railroad tracks because of the debris that happens to be in the river right now. Bill, you've been looking at this site since 1970. That is a flood area back there. It's going to flood. This is a potential significant impact, and you should make a finding to that effect and call for a public hearing. Thank you.
He's staying at ground level.
That's the commission.
Thank you.
That's on you guys.
Floods no matter what.
We have to respectfully disagree. I do appreciate the concerns of the property owner. In my opinion, this is a vast improvement over existing conditions. Anybody who were to come in here and develop a site like this would still have to mitigate stormwater with underground retention. No matter the size of the building, no matter what they're doing, they would still have to do a detention system which meets all regulations. The fact that we have taken the steps to come in and be 100% compliant with zoning regulations was a big step. The fact that we're offering to clean this up right now, the existing conditions, the function and values of this wetland itself, it's all gravel. There's no wildlife habitat. There's a lot of debris. I'm unaware of any illegal building activities. I don't know about that. I do know the removal of all that gravel and the replacement of it with the wildlife understory that's native to the area will promote wildlife and it will help those wetlands function.
Anyone else? Is there anyone else who wants to speak in opposition to this? Hearing none?
Tina, we've sent notices of violation to the previous owner. And that's what you were alluding to.
Right.
We've sent numerous. In fact, even in my administration, as Barry kindly showed, I was a very old person. We've sent a lot of them too. This whole section historically was right up to the base of the Barnum Avenue slope. Back in,
1 second.
but I don't know. Do we have any record as to what came of those violations?
No, and I've gone through file after file. I can't find anything as far as what was done to actually deal with those violations. I found the violation letters, and then for whatever reason, nothing ever happened. And I actually tried to go back through aerial imagery to see if I could actually pinpoint a date when all this filling on the It's not filling of the wetlands, but filling of the upland review area next to the
Well,
water
it
course
actually goes
itself.
back to filling, it was wetlands. I mean, later on in the, 80s and even probably into the 90s, it became upland review area rather than poorly
Than
drained
what it
soil.
should have been. Understood. And the thing was, I tried to go back through the aerial imagery to try and pinpoint when the violation began so you could know who to go after for the violation. I can't find it. I simply can't find it. If I had that information, I could pinpoint a person and say, you did the violation, you clean it up before we move forward. I can't do that right now. And in my opinion, this is a solid concrete plan to clean up the area and offer a benefit to the wetland and finally get it in a condition that's once again using it as a functional wetland. Because right now, it's not a functional wetland. It's a disaster. It's a complete and utter disaster.
Our client had recently purchased the property, so if there were any violations that were issued to the previous owner, I don't even know that.
And in speaking with Amy, who might be one of your partners, about the project, she said, this was all here when he purchased it. It's very hard to pinpoint the person that actually was responsible for the violation.
He's offering to clean it all up, he says.
Exactly. So he's taken ownership of this property, and in my opinion, is giving us a nice mitigation for what they're putting in the upland, the storage facility. And like you said, we have that 50-foot buffer that's going to be completely vegetated. It's going to be a functional wetland. So not only do we have water being stored in the detention facilities and slowly exfiltrated to the water course, which right now everything sheet flows to the water course. And a lot of that sheet flow is coming all the way from Barnum Avenue. It goes straight down the driveway, and so you're catching a lot of contaminants from Barnum Ave heading straight to the water course. This is going to slow it down, infiltrate it. Plus, you have the added benefit of the vegetated 50-foot buffer for an extra degree of filtration. So this is the best plan I've encountered for cleaning up the area and also serving the economic purpose of being able to use that site for something. So in my opinion, this is a benefit for the wetland, and I think that's what we have to keep in mind, regardless of who actually is in violation here for the debris fields that are on site. I don't think that should be as major a concern to us at this point as this is a plan to clean it up. But it's of course, it's up to the commission to decide whether you think this needs to go to public hearing or not. And like I mentioned before, even if you decide that it does not represent a significant impact activity, if there's anybody in opposition to the project, they can of course sign a petition to have it go to a public hearing. So there's other routes. It's up to the commission though to make the decision.
What would the scenario be if it went to public hearing, if we requested a public hearing, in terms of our time?
If we went to public hearing, we would have to start public hearing within the next month. And then I believe it's 65 days that we have for public
65,
hearing.
right.
And then at the end of that time frame, we would have to make a final decision.
Tina, did any part of the EPA aware what's been dumped over there or anything that's been just left there?
I do not know. I do not know the answer to that.
You have the before and after pictures, the ones Barry gave you and prior?
I have the photos that Barry gave are just pretty much the conditions that are on site right now. Yeah, so I don't know if anybody's been to the property, but I did a site walk and it's exactly like the pictures Barry showed. There's just,
How long has it been there?
I have no idea. I tried to go through the aerial photographs, but there's jumps in the aerial photography. You couldn't go from 2010 to 2006, and you miss the years in between, so you don't know when the materials were actually placed on site.
Hey, gentlemen.
Could I just say one thing, concerning the public hearing? We know that we have a budding property owner that you could tell by his representative that he's going to oppose this. And I've always thought that a public hearing works both ways. It doesn't only work against an applicant. It works in favor of an applicant in terms of what could happen down the road with a lawsuit or tying it up in court or just making, the whole project stretch out over a period of time. I mean, we've had public hearings for lesser impact applications. I just think it might be a safer way to go. That's my opinion. I know the applicant is gone through great pains and is going to, conform to all our needs, but you do have to give the public a chance to have an input on this. So it's up to what the commissioners think, but
I'd have to agree. I think procedurally, as you say, it cuts both ways. In the most likelihood, if you don't have opponents or people who have different views, an opportunity to express them.
Tina?
At best, it becomes a kind of an awkward situation. And as you reflected, we've had public hearings for far less. I would tend to agree that I don't think the applicant's going to have to present any more information. I mean, the amount of information we have in front of us is more than adequate, in my opinion. Giving the public an opportunity to look at these through public notice of a public hearing may eliminate some brain damage later on. I would like to, are there any other commissioners that?
In your opinion, this plan would be the best option so far that has come along. And so a public hearing would get everything straight so it could go on as far as what's being proposed tonight.
I definitely have to agree with Bill and Ron that, yes, a public hearing is probably in the best interest here. Get all the information out on the table, and like Bill said, I don't believe they're going to have to present any information above and beyond what they've presented tonight. We'll just get it out into a public forum, so to reduce liability in the long run.
Then I make a motion, go to a public hearing.
Motion, second.
I'll second.
Discussion?
The point of order, Mr. Chairman, would be based upon a finding of potential significant impact.
I think that's required.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
See you again.
Okay. Moving on to new business. Item 4A. IWWA application 2016-15, construct a new temple hall with associated infrastructure within an upland review area of Freeman Brook Watercourse. Site address 96 Chapel Street, Assessor's Map 60.17, Block 1, Lot 3. Applicant Hindu Cultural Center. Does the applicant or his representative here?
Yes, good evening, Madam Secretary, Ms. Baco, Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Barry Knott. I'm a lawyer with the firm of Knott & Justice Office at 1656 Main Street, Stratford, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the Hindu Cultural Center, which currently operates out of the former Unitarian Church building at 96 Chapel Street, Stratford. Now, this application was submitted back in November in anticipation, or the beginning of December, I guess, in anticipation of being accepted at your December meeting, which I understand was so formal. So, one thing you have to do tonight is you got to accept the application, but I'd also appreciate the opportunity to make a brief presentation just to get you oriented as to what this application is about, and that way it may be able to facilitate approval at the next meeting.
That's fine.
In any event, design has been using the existing Unitarian Church building for its religious and cultural programs since acquiring title to the property in 2011. With me this evening to answer questions, if necessary, are Mr. Bal Krishna Sharma, Chairman of the Board of Directors of the Hindu Cultural Center. That's him. Dr. Pramila Nathan, a member of the Hindu Cultural Center Board of Directors. Mr. Andy Hansel, Vice President of the Hindu Cultural Center. And Mr. Artie Wu, a civil engineer from Atlantic Consulting Engineering, who designed the drainage plan, soil erosion, sediment control plan with supporting details, who will talk to you in a minute to explain the hydrology aspects of this application. Before I introduce Mr. Wu, I want to explain a little bit about what the purpose of the new facility would be. Hindu temples are not only sacred places, but also places of secular activity. Sacred and secular, okay? A meeting place where members can gather for lectures, practice yoga, meditation, spiritual discourse, and sing divine songs. The new building proposed by the Hindu Cultural Center will incorporate a sacred temple, the design of which has to follow certain geometrical designs relating to the placement of deities within the structure and the gathering within the structure of universal cosmic energy. Subjects about which I am not very familiar, but very important to the Hindu religion. The temple must consist of an inner sanctum where deities are placed, the primary of which deities must face east. Okay? The new building is being proposed solely for religious purposes, whereas the existing facilities will be used for all the cultural activities. Prior to embarking on this current proposal, my client considered reconfiguring the current workshop hall, which was designed, in other words, the former Unitarian Church building, which is their current hall. But that was designed on Unitarian Church principles. And they explored various options along those lines. Unfortunately, the current hall does not lend itself to accommodate all geometric design principles and leave room for Hindu religious practices to take place without undergoing a massive expansion of the building and interruption of the current operation of the former church, Unitarian Church. Hence, the proposal before you tonight was explored as a solution to this problem, and it was determined that this proposal satisfies the geometric design requirements for our Hindu religious facility, while still leaving the previous Unitarian Church building available to continue all of the cultural activities of the Hindu Cultural Center. So the new facility is going to be for the religious activities. The current Unitarian building, I call it, is for cultural activities. Now, the existing former Unitarian Church building is 9,464 square feet in size, and the newly proposed temple will be an additional 7,164 square feet, so a total building area on site, if this application is approved, of 16,628 square feet. The site itself is 3.598 acres in size, or 156,728 square feet. Parking is provided on our site plan for 105 cars, where 84 are required under the zoning regulations. In addition to wetlands approval, we also need special case approval from the zoning commission pursuant to section 4.1.6.3 of the zoning regulations, which requires special case approval to use residential property for church purposes. So if we get approval here, we have to go to the zoning commission where there will be another public hearing, or where there will be a public hearing, I should say, for the special case application. The site is located in that area of Stratford, which provides for a 250-foot regulated area. Most of the on-site activity proposed by my client exists outside of about 90 feet from the wetland area. So we're in 250 So at this time, I want to introduce Mr. Artie Blue, the civil engineer from Atlantic Consulting and Engineering, who will explain the site plan as it relates to the wetland area located at the site. Artie?
You're going to have to speak up because you don't have a mic.
That one doesn't work?
The proposed new temple hall is about 9,499 square feet. Currently, the existing condition, the front part. Hello. The current condition of the site, the front part which flows through Chapel Street, this part sheet flows to Chapel Street and flows down Chapel Street. The 3/4 part of the property sheet flows eastward favorably to the northeast corner, and there's a wetland and a brook flowing downstream. So the proposed temple and the water from the proposed temple will be collected through the roof leaders and down through the proposed rain garden, and then the walk will be collected with a series of catch basins, which also drains into the rain garden. Now the rain garden is sized to attenuate the peak flow up to the 50-year storm, and it will also handle the water quality volume for the site.
Yeah, I have a question. Not being familiar with what a rain garden constitutes, is it going to be a grass swale type area? Are there plantings within the rain garden? What makes up the rain garden?
A rain garden, it could be like a grass swale, or it will be normally called a water basin, or we can put plantings in the rain garden. In our detail section, we are proposing to do some plantings within the basin, and we have a list of approved plants which we'll just
Okay,
pick.
now that explains it. Thank you. Thank you.
Is there going to be some sort of a bleed-off, did you say, from the rain garden?
Yeah, the rain garden will have a 10-foot wide weir, which if it overflows, it sheet flows down to the water course.
Is it going to be like a level, you're putting a level spreader, is that what you're putting in?
No, not a level spreader. It's a weir, an overflow weir.
Just a weir?
Yeah.
It didn't, is there a detail on the weir?
No, we don't have it here.
The detail of the weir, I think, no.
All right, because
No,
it's
it's
going
not
down a fairly significant slope. It occurs to me that we're going to need a fairly significant detail on that bleed-off.
I agree. That was
mean,
actually one of the comments
That's
that
like a one-on-one slope going down to the water course.
that was one of the comments I had myself that I was going to bring up. We need more information on this rain garden. I simply don't know enough about it.
Okay.
We're also going to need some sort of spec in terms of what you're going to be planting in the rain garden to make sure it's. Do you have that available for the?
Yeah, it's in the detail sheet.
Because that'll have to be part of the application. I must say though, you're picking up all the roof drainage and sending it also into the rain garden.
Yeah.
I'm looking at your roof. That must have been quite a challenge.
That's true. That is true.
Are there gutters around the roof? Or?
The structural for part of the roof, I'm not aware. I was just, the architect said he will collect everything and send it to.
All right. I would suggest that we get a little bit more detail, particularly on that section.
Yep. In addition to more detail on the rain garden, one question I had was, one of your notes here says retaining wall required to be designed separately. I'll need to see the specifications on that wall, on that retaining wall, because you have private residential property directly to the south of you, so we want to make sure that in the course of you building that wall, it's not going to affect any of the neighbors. So it'll be important that you provide those specifications.
Okay.
Is that right on the property line? That's exactly on the property line?
I'm honest, I believe so. Yes. Is that correct? That the wall
Yeah,
will be built directly on the property
very close
line?
to the property line, about a foot.
So you're gonna, how do you build something like that?
That's what we need to find out. That's why I need the specifications on the wall.
Sections.
Well, it's not only, yeah, you need to have some work to do that. You can't, We'll provide you with more information. Okay.
Isn't that rainforest just a fancy way of doing a retention system?
Sorry?
The rainforest,
Rain garden.
rain garden?
Yeah, the rain garden is,
Just a modified retention pond, right?
yes, it's environment friendly, low impact development.
That's
system.
all it is. It's nothing unique. It's just a fancy retention area.
But we still need to know how.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying it's...
Like Bill said, it's especially important given that the slopes on this property are so steep going towards, I guess it's Freeman Brook. So it's really important that we make sure that all that water is contained on
Is
site.
retained and let out slowly,
Yeah,
exactly.
because if it flows off the site, we could get scour going down towards the water course, and with that debris, pollutants, etc.
Anything else?
I move the table.
But we could only, won't accept the application. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have. I think the materials provided are enough to, at this point, accept the application. There's, of course, still a lot more information that we'll need moving forward in subsequent meetings, but I believe the application is essentially complete at this point. There's just going to be a few items that we're going to need.
You can put that on the chair.
I move to accept the application.
I second it.
Second. We have a motion, a second. Any discussion?
I second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? All right, so the application is accepted. We need,
Are you gonna move to table it?
Well, it's accepted, it'll be on the next page.
Oh, okay.
the application is accepted. Before the next meeting, we need clarification on the rain garden, the weir, and the retaining wall.
I got the list.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Moving on. New business item B, application 2016-16, construct brewing facilities, associated infrastructure and parking, and regulated wetlands and upland review areas. Address 1526 Stratford Avenue, Assessor's Map 30.8, Block 20, Lot 5, applicant, Two Roads Emeritus Company, LLC. Is the applicant or the representatives here?
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Brad Hiddle, and I'm the founding partner and CEO of Two Roads Brewing Company on Stratford Avenue. And we're here to apply for, we'd like to build a second brewing facility at 1526 Stratford Avenue, which is within an inland wetlands review area. The objective of this is to build a second brewing facility for very specialized beers that require long-term barrel aging. It's a rising segment in the craft beer industry, and we need to have this facility to do so. It will entail a a brewing production facility as well as a tasting room. Brian O'Connor from Neil Howe Architecture will take you through the architecture, and Steve McAllister from McCord Engineering will take you through the engineering. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about the overall project, but they'll take you through the details.
Christina, how many acres of wetland are actually going to be?
Hold on.
1.1, is that on the application?
Did I write it down?
And the amount of proposed, are these not, I guess what I'm asking is, on
The project will involve filling of approximately 2,569 square feet of designated wetlands at the rear of the new building to facilitate a more natural transition between the building site and existing wetlands. As mitigation, 2,675 square feet of new wetlands will be planted in the northwest corner of the site.
so the numbers on the application form are correct?
I believe so.
It was just funny because when I was deliberating it, looking at the things, it was difficult to come up with the same numbers. But if you say they are, there are.
Oh, hold on. Total acreage of project site, total acreage of wetlands on project site. Yeah, so the proposed acreage of actual wetland alteration, that is correct. So it's 6,000 feet essentially that's going to be disturbed, 3,000 of which is at the rear of where they're doing the actual construction of the facility. Another 3,000 is going to be restored in the back of the property.
Okay.
Hence the 6,000.
All right. Just want to make sure. Thank you.
Sorry.
No worries. Good evening, Brian O'Connor from Neil Howe Architects. I just have some pictures of the wetlands. That's I'll quickly run you through the plans here. In the basement of the facility, there will be slab on grade. This will be actual basement storage and mechanical space. There'll be a small access way for forklifts and whatnot. The actual ground floor of the brewery, we composed of warehouse and staging. There'll be a warm conditioning room, which is a cooler that stays at a constant temperature. Packaging area, barrel storage, the actual brew house, and dining and kitchen facility in the back for special events. When you enter the building, you're going to come up in the foyer. There'll be a bridge where you can look down on both sides so you see the barrel storage, you see the brew house, and you end up in the tasting room in the back. The goal is to have a deck off the back where you can enjoy your beer and look out over the wetland. That'll be on both the dining area and the tasting room. It's going to be hard to see from there, but we have some concept elevations. We have our average grade calculation there, and then this is the one that'll give you an idea of where the fermenters will be, where the brew house will be. That's the bridge where you're walking across, looking down through the brew house, the fermenters, and all the barrel storage. And the rest of the facility is pretty much production and storage. So that's it. If there's any questions, please feel free to ask.
On the north side of your building, we show a deck.
A cool ship. That is I will let Brad.
What kind of activities are going to happen on that side of the building? Are there doors? Are there anything for access?
No, there's going to be an elevated deck that extends off of the tasting room where people can view the wetlands and enjoy a beer. The building that says Cool Ship it's actually a production building that has to be isolated, and it uses a centuries-old brewing technique involving horizontal, basically a shallow swimming pool where you pour unfermented beer into it, and then the ambient yeast from the air goes in and ferments it, and it creates very unique Belgian-style beers. So that's why it's... Yeah.
But there's no overhead doors, there's not going to be any access on that side of the building?
No, right? No.
I mean, will there be
There's a utility access, but there's no public.
Well, one of the things we're concerned about is, you know, where you going to pick up your garbage, where you going to store the waste oil, for lack of a better term. It's going to be on the backside of the building?
It's going to be, they will be connected. It's going to be hard pipes to the fermenters inside, or the brew house inside.
Oh, the brewing waste or like garbage from the tasting room?
Well, anything. I mean, one of the concerns is when we're that close to wetlands to a building, that they, nothing personal, they tend to be huge. You can't see it. That's where I put all the old drums, and that's where we put stuff that we don't want to look at.
There's a lot of that in there right now.
Yeah, I know. This wetland also has a significant history of filling over the years. Again, it's another one that stands to improve. Conversely, when we try to put together a plan for a new facility, we don't want to continue the degradation.
Right. Our plan is to, I mean, any brewing waste is usually in liquid form, so that goes into the sewage. It's biological, it goes into the sewage. Any trash that is generated, which would be very little, mostly paper towels and things like that from the tasting room, that would get taken out from there's a this, yeah. No, I want the ground floor. Right. So storage, indoor storage, this is where we would have, like trucks are going to come in and out of here, so we would have, any garbage would be taken out from here. It wouldn't be stored in the back here. Yes, this is going to be a loading dock right here.
And a loading dock on the bridge.
The loading dock comes in this way. This is going to be the primary loading dock, and then this is going to be more for when we build the building. We're going to bring equipment in this way.
It's not a loading dock that goes down to grade. It's at grade. This driveway that you're showing on the top there, that's going to be at grade, or is that going to be increased?
Yeah, actually,
Good evening. My name is Steve McAllister. I'm with McCord Engineering down in Wilton. This is a colored version of the site plan. This loading dock here is a drive-in loading dock at the bottom level, at the basement level. This loading dock is your conventional 4-foot-high typical loading dock at the ground level.
Let me get this straight. The one on the top, the one that's going horizontal,
Yes, sir.
it's going to go down to a sump.
No,
Onto a sump. No, it's going into the basement.
it's that grade.
yeah, grade actually slopes up like that. So this is at the same level as
The concerns we normally have when we have loading docks is that loading docks are classically where all stuff gets spilled, accidents happen, deaths happen, and it has to be contained usually. And we have a problem when we have a loading ramp that goes down, that's natural flow, rainwater and all of that.
It doesn't drain. It doesn't slope
Excuse me.
down to the building. It slopes out.
If I may, maybe we'll clear this up. The loading dock, not the drive-in, the loading dock. The driveway is at the elevation, more or less, of Stratford Avenue, perhaps with some slope. What is the elevation of the floor adjacent to it? In other words, does the driveway go up to the dock like this, as opposed to what he's describing, the loading dock scenario where you have a pitch?
In the case of both loading docks. The slope is up to the
Okay.
dock, towards the building.
They're not
That answers the
underground loading docks.
All I was trying to say before is that this one here, it's not a typical loading dock. You're actually able to drive into the building. Right. The other ones, you're 4 foot high loading dock.
But they do slope away.
Yes.
They don't slope towards.
Yeah.
And just a note, back, I think it was over the summer, Brad had come in for an administrative permit to actually get this site cleaned up to environmental standards, if you guys remember. There was a lot of fill and debris and contaminated material on the site. So I think that shows the dedication in getting this site cleaned up for its use. I highly doubt, after spending all the time and energy and funds to get it in this more pristine condition, that they're going to let it fall back into the disrepair that we've seen, and the sad state of things before they took it over. So I think they're definitely invested in the property.
It's always good. You gotta understand where I'm from. I understand the history of that property. All of that property was wetland
Yeah,
20 years ago.
It's not his
I hear you.
I think what the question is, in the back of the building, is there going to be any activity, picnic tables where an excess of garbage and activities going to happen impact the wetlands?
The only
I mean,
activity
is the
that we'll do
employees
is,
going to be able to go back there, or are they going to be out on the side or in the front?
No.
In a staging area?
there's going to be no
Is there
congregation.
fire exits or something?
There will be fire exits, yeah.
But no public activity?
No.
Okay. So that clears up more garbage going into the wetlands? You know, cans and garbage and papers and bottles, basically what Bill was saying, no activity in the back?
No, there's no social, there's no public activity in the back. In fact, we're planning on hiring a wetlands landscaper to go back and appropriately make it more attractive, and we plan on cleaning out the significant amount of garbage
And
that
you're going to have
flows in there.
dumpsters on site that get picked up
I missed that.
regularly? Or are they going to be garbage cans, or
What was the question?
is it going to have dumpsters or a dumpster pad or an area?
Oh, yeah, it's just like the brewery. We have a constant garbage collection process. If you've ever been to the brewery, please come to the brewery. We take pride in taking care of the property, making it clean. We want it to look very appealing to the public. Otherwise, nobody's going to come back.
Oh, you do good with the other one.
So I understand that that in the back part, there is a tasting area. Is that correct? Or
On the second floor.
Oh, that's the second
Yeah,
floor.
there's a tasting
So
room.
it overlooks
and
that whole area.
Seasonally, there's a tasting room that's indoors.
Right.
And then seasonally, we'll have a very small deck off the second floor
I see.
where people can enjoy the view of the wetlands but not access the wetlands.
Right. So that even is more imperative to keep that area top-notch, right?
Of course.
Right.
And in speaking with the applicant before they made the application, we spoke about how they're going to hire the landscape architect to design a wetlands, to design the wetland mitigation area, the plan for the wetland mitigation area, and all that will come through me as a condition of the permit before anything gets planted there. So we'll have oversight on the native plantings that go in and maintenance of that, and it'll all be part of the conditions of the permit that say, the applicant's responsible for long-term maintenance of the site, and et cetera. Standard things we normally do.
Your catch basins are fairly standard. Which one's the engineer? Help me out.
Yeah.
On industrial sites like this, how do you feel about hooded catch basins?
It could be a good idea, to be honest with you. We didn't include it in our design, but I can't say it's a bad idea.
You know what I'm talking about with the...
Yeah, they trap debris in the basin so that when they...
Anything that's floating, then they have to get it out.
Exactly,
It doesn't
yeah.
go downstream.
That's actually a standard detail down in Stratford right now, so...
You don't show hooded catch basin?
No, we didn't propose it here.
Huh? Would you show hooded? Would you entertain a hooded catch basin system?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
What kind of catch basin?
Plan?
Yeah.
What kind of catch basin? What kind you said?
It's called a hooded catch basin.
I didn't hear you. What?
Hood, H-O-O-D.
Oh, Hood, oh, okay.
Your last picture here is showing a conduit pipe that's all clogged up. Do you know if that serves any drainage purpose? Is it just debris or? From what I.
That is a 30-inch municipal drainage that goes all the way to the Honey Spot Road, Stratford Avenue intersection. It's actually not clogged up. That's like a beaver dam way in front of it. It's flowing. I went that there this morning and took those pictures. And so water is flowing through there. But that's been there.
Do you plan on doing the cleanup of that?
We plan on cleaning up all the debris back there and making sure that that is never blocked. It's in our best interest to do that.
I just didn't know whether this was obsolete or whether it was.
Right, yeah. As background, the United Illuminating is building their new substation. And we had noticed over the last 4 years there's a lot of drainage issues on their property, water just coming up. And they just cleaned out all those storm drains. They removed 8 tons of debris. So it's nice to get a little rotor-rooter going at that intersection.
I just have a question for staff, just as a clarification. It's not with the applicants themselves, but because we're filling a low-quality, insignificant wetland and mitigating it with a high-quality, much-improved wetland area, that falls under Section 2.29, where we wouldn't automatically be required to have a public hearing. In all my experience on this commission, any time a wetland had been filled, it was an automatic cause for a public hearing. I'm only trying to protect the applicant. I really don't think it's necessary, but I can never remember a case when we did not have a public hearing for the filling of a wetland, no matter what the quality of the wetland was. Are you're pretty sure about this section?
I am, and I gotta say, the quality of the wetlands on the site right now is in such a degraded condition, like you said, and we've seen from the pictures that it really is gonna be a benefit.
I know.
And I don't foresee,
You don't see any recourse from anyone down the road?
I really don't.
Okay.
So is this an
That's my
acceptance,
question.
acceptance of this, or?
Yeah, we're going to accept it tonight, yeah.
I think what we should do is, well, being that our last meeting was canceled due to lack of quorum when we should have been accepting this application, I would recommend that we accept the application tonight, and then if possible, we reconvene in 2 weeks and render a decision on the application then, so February 1st, and that would give the applicant enough time to have the inland wetland application accepted prior to the next zoning hearing. I think it's Board of Zoning Appeals that you go to next, is that correct? And when I spoke to Jay Hibansky, I think as long as you're approved by February 1st, you should be in good shape for that Board of Zoning Appeals hearing. So that would be my suggestion to the commission.
Can we do both tonight?
Yes.
Can we?
I spoke to Ron about this previously, actually, and I believe we can really only accept the application tonight, and we have to render a decision after, a given amount of time. If the public did want to read the minutes from tonight's meeting and make a comment about it, that gives them an opportunity to do so.
Yeah, I think protocol says we can only accept it.
Yeah.
Right.
So we accept it tonight, and then maybe it would be to the benefit of all if the commission would make a motion to have the February, we could either move the February meeting up, or we could have 2 meetings in February.
How long do we need to advertise for a public hearing for the previous application?
I was actually thinking about that. We have to have 10 days, so that would also give me...
My thing is, can we kill 2 birds with one?
No, I agree with that. So I could have a notice sent out for the public hearing of the Barnum Ave application. If I send that out by Friday, we should be in good shape to be able to hear the Two Roads application and do the public hearing for Barnum Avenue on February 1st.
Yeah, because all we have to do is just, notice the public hearing, then notice a regular meeting immediately following,
Correct.
or vice versa.
Correct. Of course, I have to make sure that we'll be able to have a facility in which to hold the hearing. If it can't be in council chambers, I believe we're also able to use Baldwin Center, so I'll work out the logistics and let you know. Or 213, so.
So according to John's question, we can't vote on both tonight? For what reason, John? I mean, Ron?
Can
We can accept the application, we can't vote on it just because the public does have to have time to go through meeting minutes, and if they did ever want to.
Yeah, but this ain't going to a public hearing anyway, right?
It's not gonna go to public hearing, but.
You gotta
it's
give
like
them
I
the
said
10
before,
days.
The public can, sign a petition to have it go to public hearing if they wanted to, they have to be given that adequate time.
I make a motion, we accept it.
Have a motion to accept? We have a
I make a
second?
motion.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. We'll be in touch and let you know about this
Thank you.
expedited meeting if we can put it together.
Thank you for doing that, too. Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay. So, staff report?
Yes. No notices of violation were issued in the period between November 16th and January 18th. There were 3 administrative permits that were issued. The first application, 2016-13A, construction of a single-family residence within an upland review area of an off-site water course. The address is 60 Putney Chapel Way. This property is directly across the street from Booth Park. Everyone knows Putney Chapel Way. So it's separated from the water course by the roadway itself. And only a small portion of the lawn was actually in the upland review area. So it was really just a formality that they had to come in for a permit. I spoke with Bill about what was done previously when that road was being developed, and for the most part, all of those homes had administrative applications that came through. So that's the way I handled this one as well. I made sure that they had their appropriate sediment and erosion controls, aka a silt fence around the property, when they started doing some of their site work. So there's that. Application 2016-14A was installation of a septic system within an upland review area of a water course. That was 65 River Valley Road. It was a pretty standard application. The water course itself is a small pond that's located on the homeowner's property, entirely on the homeowner's property. Any questions on it? It was really standard. Application 2017-1A, construction of a 295 square foot addition to an existing home within upland review area of wetlands. This was on 81 Whippoorwill Lane. Again, this was a really small addition to an already existing home, and it was well outside any wetlands. It was just within the upland review area. Again, conditions of the permit were having the appropriate sediment and erosion controls at the border of the wetlands themselves to ensure that no sediments were reaching the water course. Wetlands, I should say.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the meeting dates for 2017 as presented this year. We have to accept them, so. Just need a second on that.
Right. We have a second. Discussion? All in favor? We'll have to change it for this additional meeting, but.
Yeah. That'll be a special meeting.
The resident that did the clear cutting, is there anything going on with that?
Yes, he's hired a developer to come up with a more appropriate development plan for the property, which will include a restoration plan. And I sent out another order after speaking with the town attorney, that gave the applicant until the February meeting to come in front of us with a complete wetlands application package and restoration plan. Now that we're going to be moving the date of that up, I've already spoken with the applicant and told them that we may be having the inland wetland meeting for February earlier than anticipated. So I'm now giving him until the March meeting to get everything in order to present us with a plan. So there's that. And in that order, it specifically states, as per my discussion with the attorney, the town attorney, that every day he doesn't present something to us after that March meeting. If he doesn't show up at the March meeting, for example, every day he doesn't have something to us, he can incur a $1,000 a day fine. So.
Anything else?
Commissioners Forum?
Commissioners Forum, yes.
Christina, you don't look like you're working enough, so don't shoot me. Do you think it would be possible to get a one-liner year-end report on all the permits that we have voted on, whether they started, whether they're done, whether whatever?
I can do that.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's interesting because so many of them never get started.
No, I know. Will an email suffice if I put it in email?
Any way you want. Snail mail, email, phone
I'm going to
call.
write a note so I do that.
Pony Express?
And if you don't see anything from me regarding that within the next, or by early next week, please just shoot me a note and so I remember to do it. I don't want to forget.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to start the proceedings to remove a commissioner that hasn't attended for 4 consecutive months. Ms. Fine, I don't know her, but I think it's time that we make space for someone that wants to show up. I would suggest Mr. Blake, who was taken off, but I'd like to make a motion to start those proceedings. I don't know who has to be addressed, whether it be the council itself or the council clerk. But that's my motion. Anybody wants to second it?
We have a second?
I want to second it. Could I add to that, though, about bringing Blake back? Is that what you said?
That's my suggestion. That's not our choice.
I didn't hear the whole thing. That's why I asked that.
First, we have to make a...
No, I just want to make sure I heard the question clearly.
Someone removed who hasn't shown any interest.
Right. We should, I agree. Let them go and bring somebody that's been here.
No. It's up to the council. No, I just threw that in.
We don't know.
So we make a motion to get rid of all the gas.
Okay.
Was that
No.
the question? I missed.
The motion is to start the proceedings to request that the council remove Commissioner Fine, who has missed now her fourth
Yeah.
meeting since being appointed.
Right.
It's been silence.
So what is the procedure to do that? I think I asked you that earlier.
We have to send a letter.
You have to, first you vote on it.
We vote on it.
If
We'll
there's a
send a letter.
majority, we send a letter to the council.
So we're going to vote to suspend her or
We're going to
remove her?
vote.
You have to
The
vote
vote
to
is
make
going to be to make a recommendation
And
that
that's
she's
what Ron just
removed.
did. Okay, which I second.
You second.
That's in our bylaws, and we can
Right,
you
4
can cite
meetings.
the section in the bylaws that said that we have, if somebody hasn't shown, I think it's in 3 months,
Correct.
that
We have the right to let him
we
go.
have the right to,
Vote on him and get him and bring somebody else back.
we don't have the right to suggest.
We don't remove them. We're going to petition.
Right.
That we can do, you have to kind of do that in a lobby sense.
Suggest it.
Suggest it, yeah.
Right.
But you can't do it in a vote.
Right. So,
This is a vote.
the motion is to begin those proceedings.
I
We have a
second it.
second.
Right.
Any discussion? The only discussion I have is, I don't want to sit here like we did last month, with people sitting out there with paid hands and nobody's here. It's embarrassing. So, for the rest of you that are here, we understand that everybody can't make a meeting. please, if you know you're not going to be here, let Tina know, email, telephone. The sooner the better. If you know you're going to be on vacation next week, tell her, so that if we have to cancel a meeting, we can do it in a timely fashion. That's the only thing I would ask of the rest of you. That's it. So, we have a motion, we have a second. I'm done. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so you'll take care of that. Okay. Next motion.
To adjourn. I want to make a motion to adjourn.
You have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?